as Chelsea mentioned, we're here today to hear about our customer advisory program. So let me go ahead and share my screen and show you guys my presentation. That'd probably be helpful. There we go. Yeah, I'm going to walk you guys through our Customer Advisory Council program that we launched at San Jose Water, how we went about designing the program and kicking it off, and the things that we learned along the way, in the hopes that by the end of this, you'll be wildly jealous and ready to eagerly go and start your own advisory council program at your own company or organization. Um, so yeah, thinking about the customer advisory program at San Jose Water, it really all started out as a promise made between our VP of Regulatory at the time, John, and Pat, who was the head of the is the head of the consumer advocacy group and like watchdog group in our area, in our community. So John and Pat have battled it out, butted heads for years and years publicly, and that's never going to change. It's kind of a due process. We both have our sides to advocate for, but needless to say, that conversation, like the needle, does not move very much in that back and forth. But at some point, as a show of goodwill, I think, from John, he promised Pat that we would form some kind of council of real customers to be able to get real feedback from them. And so, not really knowing exactly where to start, we set out to make good on that promise. So we had to figure out for ourselves, what is a customer advisory council? Because it could have been a lot of different things, right? It could have been like a monthly Zoom meeting with customers. It could have been doing phone surveys. So we got together a group of our communications team and our customer service team, and then also our PR agency partners that we work with for marketing. And we decided together that for San Jose Water, a customer advisory council was going to be a half-day session that we held 2 times a year. We'd bring together around 15 customers and get them to commit to 2 sessions. And a session would be San Jose Water employees giving presentations and then having Q&A with the customers. So that is what we set out to do. And to be totally honest, the only goal that we really had going into this first session was just to be able to tell Pat that we did it, that we gave it a try. I mean, there were other benefits that we could imagine could come out of a group like this, a program like this, but we weren't necessarily hopeful that we would see those benefits. I mean, we're a utility. There's some headaches that come from that relationship between customers and their utility, right? To be honest, we get a ton of negative feedback on our social media channels and on our phone banks and online. And so we're kind of not really sure what to expect coming out of this first session. And if I can be completely honest, and I can because we're on the other side of it now, and it was a really positive experience overall. But going into this first session, we were scared. We were worried about opening up the floodgates and being inundated by negative feedback or questions that we wouldn't be able to answer from our customers. Like I said, we're a utility. We get a lot of negative feedback already online. And so the idea of willingly going into a room with our customers and handing them the mic and allowing them to say whatever's on their mind and lead the conversation, that was intimidating to us. We weren't really sure what to expect. And I think that you could kind of like see that intimidation in the way that we planned this first session, um, from the way that, first of all, our security, like the San Jose Water security team decided that they weren't really comfortable inviting customers on site into our facilities. We had never really done something like that before. And so we were not approved to have them come on site. So we had to find an offsite location to have this in-person meeting. And we also didn't want to worry our customers about the cost associated with holding this meeting, which is something that is always top of mind for our customers. And so we tried to be really frugally minded when we planned this session. We rented for a very nominal fee, like a local community center, and we skipped a lot of the printouts and handouts and the goodies and things like that, because we didn't want our customers being concerned about that. But probably the most obvious way that we showed our intimidation a little bit maybe with planning this first session was the way that we stacked the agenda with presentations from San Jose Water employees, with only a little bit of time at the end for Q&A with customers. But you know, despite our fears and our anxieties, we had our first session. We did it. We all came into a room together with our customers, and it went really, really well. I don't think I'd be here if it hadn't gone well, right? So what we learned that day, our biggest takeaway was that customer conversations do not have to be scary. That's not to say that we didn't get the usual frustrations like voiced by our customers, but being in a small group setting and yeah, just being face to face in a room together, it was not like the like overly negative commentary that we get online. There was, you know, humanity and thoughtfulness to the conversation that happened in the room together. And it really was beneficial to both sides of the conversation. And having our San Jose Water employees there, we had a bunch of people from a bunch of different departments there to give presentations and answer questions from customers was really, really essential, and really benefited the conversation that happened there. You know, our spokespeople were easily able to speak to the things that customers wanted to hear about, and answer their questions because it's the work they do every day, right? And I think the customers being able to hear directly from them really like showed them our employees' passion and dedication to their work, and that really bolstered the conversation too. And then also, I think the diversity of the group that we had, it was just a really good group of customers for this first session, also really made it what a great session that it was. So I want to dive a little bit more into how we went about recruiting that group of customers. So first, we put out an initial ask for applicants in our monthly customer like email newsletter. And it had like a little survey of just asking, you know, initial like demographic and like logistic information. And from that initial call for applicants, we had about 50 applicants. And then we handed that over to our partner PR agency, who conducted phone interviews with those applicants and really thoroughly vetted them, and basically hand-picked, like hand-built this group of customers, keeping in mind things like we wanted all different kinds of ages, different hometowns, like different places in our service area, you know, different like topics of mind, like different lifestyles, like homeowners versus like renters, like apartment renters. So our agency built that really like perfectly weighted group of customers. And then we also tapped our community partners that we work with, a nonprofit, Sacred Heart, and our customer service team as well, to weigh in about if they had any suggestions of people that they thought, like customers that they thought would be a good addition to the group. And that helped ensure that we were able to include customers who in the past had benefited from or currently benefited from our lower income programming and make sure that their voices were included too. So now we've got this really great group of customers, and our employees are feeling a little bit more excited about it, a little less scared. So we had a few new things going for us going into round 2 of our Customer Advisory Council. The first was that our security team had approved for us to bring customers on site into our facilities. And also, I discovered that San Jose Water has a bus, like a branded bus that fits like 20 to 25 people with our logo on it that we can pretty much bring wherever we want. So this was a huge turning point for our customer advisory program because now instead of just telling our customers about things, now we could show them. We could bring them all over our service area to all our different facilities to show them firsthand the projects that we're doing, the employees that we're talking about. And so this was a big turning point and really like when the customer advisory program became what it is now. And this bus is kind of at this point like a staple of the program. It's like our mascot in a way. It totally captures the vibe of going on a field trip with our customers. So going into round 2, we held it at our Montevina water treatment plant, which is up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And this time the agenda was much less speaking from San Jose Water, much less presentations, much more time for open conversation with our customers. And once again, our subject matter experts, our San Jose Water employees really shined and really made the conversation great. It was kind of like a aha moment to see in real time what topics were resonating with the customers and what people were resonating with the customers. And then also to see how our San Jose Water employees were kind of able to use this speaking opportunity as like kind of a training ground. It's a smaller, safer group to learn how to talk about their job in an approachable way, in an interesting way, and really become spokespeople or better spokespeople. So in this particular session, we basically discovered our director of water quality, Suzanne DiLorenzo, really resonates with our customers and is able to explain water quality in an interesting and engaging, approachable way. And so since that session, we have continued to find opportunities to get her voice out there and get her interacting with customers and explaining water quality topics, whether it be leading webinars or speaking on panels or even like writing op-eds and having those placed in the local newspaper. And our communications team also was a little more brave this time around. We had some like marketing materials, some advertising and like signage that we were in the process of finalizing. And so we brought them before the Customer Advisory Council and asked for their direct feedback. So this is an actual slide from that day that we put up on the screen in front of our customers and just ask them, what's resonating here? What photos do we like? What words do we like? What do we want to see changed? What do we want to see more of? And we were able to have a really engaging conversation with them and take those suggestions and actually implement them into the final version of these taglines and this imagery that we still use to this day in ads and other things. So that was a really incredible experience to get that direct feedback from our customers on materials that you spend all day, months and many, many review processes going over, but to actually hear from the people that you're trying to target is obviously so invaluable. But it also was interesting to see how it gave ownership, like to the customers, it gave them ownership over the messaging and kind of showed us how it was starting to, like this customer advisory program was starting to um, turn these customers into advocates and like informed leaders that, you know, when they go home to their HOAs or their dinner tables or online forums and San Jose Water comes up, they can join the conversation and speak about it in an intelligent way after having these sessions together. So it was really just amazing to see how you know, this customer advisory council so quickly had transformed from something that had kind of started in a slightly pessimistic place of like just trying to fulfill a promise, like kind of check a box maybe, into something that truly was beneficial and valuable to both sides and something that we were starting to lean on and really depend on being able to have that direct contact with our customers. And it was around session 4 that it really started to sink in that like we made it. So it was October 2024, and our 3-year rate setting process was right around the corner. It's something that we knew customers would have a lot of questions about. They would want to talk about rates, what's going to change, what's coming up. And so in designing the agenda for that session, we planned just 90 minutes of open dialogue about rates. You know, minimal slides, everyone sitting in a circle together, San Jose Water employees, customers, all just together and hashing it out about rates. And then to walk it off, we would go out to our watershed on the bus and have like a little picnic lunch and a little tour of our beautiful watershed land. So this was such a far cry from our original place of fear that we had kind of planned that first session, trying to minimize hearing from our customers rather than what had become now of just opening the floor and allowing them to really engage with us on a difficult topic like rate making. And it was such a valuable conversation. Literally, people were walking out of it saying, you know, that was so great to hear and understand. And, you know, we learned so much from that dialogue. And as we were out in the watershed having our picnic lunch, I snapped the photo of a lifetime. So this is John, our VP of Regulatory at the time, and Pat, the head of the local watchdog group, smiling and chit-chatting together. Like this was an incredible sight. So just as a reminder, this is the same Pat who just a few months earlier had been quoted in the local newspaper saying that San Jose Water is not accommodating their customers. But after this session, after attending this session in October, he really commended us for what, like how positive this program had become and how much thought we had put into building it out. And he acknowledged that we do listen to our customers. So, I mean, that's not to say that Pat still does his job. And our two groups are going to be butting heads until the end of time. But this customer advisory program moved the needle on that relationship and that ongoing conversation in a way that we never could have anticipated before we did it. And I really think that, I want to go back. Yes, I think that this photo really represents the relationship that we have built and continue to foster between San Jose Water and its customers. So, have I sold you on it yet? Are you ready to get started? If you're ready to try building your own customer advisory council, I just want to highlight these essentials for success that we saw from our own experience. The first being that we really benefited from having multiple maintained communication channels with our customers. That's where we were able to pull from for that initial pool of applicants, and we're able to continue pulling from, refreshing new recruits, and other communications efforts. I think that I don't think a customer advisory council should be your first touch point with customers. I really think you have to start the conversation in a lot of different places, and start kind of teeing up that further relationship. We have our monthly newsletter, we have other email campaigns that we do with customers, we have multiple different social media channels, and we also have those relationships with our community partners like Sacred Heart. And all of those helped contribute to recruiting the best group for this program. Another thing on recruitment, that I want to highlight is just that I think that foundation of having that really diverse and thoughtful first group of customers really carried this program to success. And I have to credit the amount of effort and consistency that our PR agency put into the recruitment stage of gathering those customers. There is budget associated with this project and our PR agency. That's not to say that this isn't something that you can't do in-house. I think you definitely can. I think you can own it in-house, and I don't think that you need an extravagant budget, or a big project dedicated to doing this. But I do want to emphasize that you have to dedicate that time and effort into the recruitment stage. Like that's where the most effort I think should go, or you're just not going to get everything out of it that you want to, because that group I think really can kind of make or break the entire thing. And then I also want to emphasize that your subject matter experts, your employees, are really essential to be a part of the sessions themselves with the customers. Your employees are the ones that are going to bring that humanity and that passion and that dedication into the room and into the conversations with customers. And just as much as the spokespeople make the meeting, I think you'll see that the meetings are going to serve as a training ground, a practice area for your employees to learn better how to talk about their job, in a way that makes sense to people, and give them the practice that they need, and also teach them that conversations with customers do not have to be scary. So with that, these are just some other photos from our other sessions, with our advisory council over the years. And I guess I'll open it up to questions about everything that I've just gone over.
Yeah, it's so good. As people think of your questions, put them in the chat. I'll start us with one here in a second. Yeah, you can just put them in the chat or the Q&A box, so whichever is your preference if you wanted to be anonymous. But I also have a question for the audience. I'm curious, out of you guys, a lot of different utilities represented, and do you have a customer advisory committee like this? Are you starting one? Or what is the biggest challenge that is like holding you up, or and hopefully Pal calmed some of those fears. Some of the takeaways for me about how you guys did it is that you can start slow. Like you do not have to go all in and have a full year monthly agenda and all of this. You could do quarterly. You could, you don't have to create this big scary thing. And I love y'all's journey and progression to, hey, we're just going to talk at you so you can't say too much, to like, no, here's 90 whole minutes just to listen to you guys. I thought that was really cool. One
Yeah.
question I have, and I'll start, but someone does have one in chat. One question I had was, in regards to picking people, do they have terms? Are you with the same group for like a set period of time? And when does like rotation happen? You talked a little bit about this, but
Yeah, so we try to get customers to commit to coming to 2 sessions. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the two in a row, like the two for the year, but it would be great if it were that. And it is kind of a small enough group that, and because we have that phone call connection, that we're able to kind of work with them to find a date that works for most people and a time that works for most people to help try and accommodate them being able to make it. And then beyond that, we kind of just ask, do you want to come back again? Again, kind of by availability. So now what we're trying to do is we keep maybe like 10 of like original people and then bring in like 5 new ones around there. And I mean, now we've had a few years of sessions and it's kind of getting to a point where it's like, I kind of want to go back to the Montevina treatment plant, but you guys have seen it already. So sometimes we'll tell them, like, we're going to go back there. I don't know if you want to do that again. And they'll say, yeah, I'll pass on that. Or, yeah, I do want to go. So we kind of play it by ear, but it's a kind of a mix of returning people and then also new people.
A couple questions related to accommodation of how people are able to participate. One, with the half day sessions, was it hard to accommodate people of like, oh, I'm at work, I can't get this half day off? And then someone asked, when did you hold the meetings? Was it during business hours or the evening?
Yes, that is a challenge. Because if you're having, we do have it during like the work day. We have it kind of around like lunchtime during the day. And that on the one hand, it helps us with getting San Jose Water employees to be involved. But on the other hand, it is harder to involve working, like people that are working. We do get a lot of retirees because they're the ones that have the most time. And so we actually are, now that the program is kind of like up and running, now we want to explore being able to engage different people. So our next session that we're going to have, we are trying to plan it as an after hours and be so that people that are working during the day will be able to come. It is a little bit more of a challenge of getting San Jose Water employees to be involved. And I don't think it'll be 4 hours long, obviously. So it's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little shorter. But you do have to keep that in mind of who's going to be able to come at different times on both sides, both the from a support perspective and also who can attend.
And I think that engagement you mentioned with employees is so crucial because it puts a face behind the name of the utility, and that's where you build trust, and that's how you relate and earn advocates and all of that. I'll group two together. Someone in the Q&A box asked, was there any incentive offered to the customers to participate? And then likewise, someone said, can you talk more about how you ensured it was like an equitably representative or representation of your community? And I think you talked about you used a PR agency for that work.
Yes, yeah, a lot of effort has to go into speaking on the phone to these people, really trying to vet them. And it's not perfect. I will say, like I said, it's during the day, so we can't get people that are working. We do get more like retirees, so that kind of skews like the age of people that are involved. But that's why we also have to approach it from a lot of different ways, right? Like we had the sign up through our email, so getting people to volunteer themselves, and then the vetting process with the phone interviews, also tapping our nonprofit partners and getting their input. We also, with customer service, we asked them, have you had any um, disgruntled people reach out? We want to invite them, because that's engagement too. If we have someone emailing us constantly worried about some creeks nearby their house or something, that's an engaged customer. And so we try to involve those people too. So coming at it from a lot of different ways is the only way that you'll get close to the diversity of thought and people that you want. And it's never going to be perfect, but that's how we try.
This next question, I think, gets to kind of like what was the initial outreach to the customer in terms of like their commitment and what the utility committed back. So they just asked, was there any kind of like agreement on what would happen with the customer's input?
Yes, we do try to. Well, this was actually what was interesting is going into it again, like maybe from some anxieties, we pictured it staying the relationship happening at that one touch point or two touch points a year. But the reality was that once these customers are in contact with us, they've already seen us in person and they have all our contact information. They do reach out with like their concerns or whatever they have going on whenever they want, all throughout the year. So it is an ongoing conversation. We had someone reach out after our session and say, like someone in my neighborhood is saying that, they had a leak or whatever. And I remember that you guys said you have XYZ. So I told her that you guys would help or something like that.
Mm.
And, we can't ignore that. So it is an ongoing, and we did end up helping. And actually, it ended up being like that's the show of the customer being an advocate for us coming out of those sessions because instead of that issue that that person was having getting to the point of nasty angry comments on next door, right, we were able to kind of stop it or help out before it got to that level by having that advocate put us in contact with each other. But that does mean that we have to keep in mind that that communication is open kind of indefinitely. It's not just a touch point two times a year with, they're a council. They're like someone that is a part of our organization in a way, like moving forward. I also remembered that you asked about incentive, and I didn't answer that. There is no incentive beyond just we'll feed you lunch because you're here
Okay.
for 4 hours. So yeah.
Cool. I know a lot of people are putting their own kind of what they have going in the chat, and it looks like a lot of people have things like citizens water academies. Those have become really popular. That might not necessarily be this specific feedback mechanism and focus group. I loved that you highlighted the value the utility gets back. So that focus group, communication staff was able to have on what messages work and what imagery, evokes emotion and the right kind of feeling is gold. Like that, is really amazing. And hopefully, the citizens felt like they had input and feedback too. And so that was cool. It also
Yeah,
goes
and
to go ahead.
sorry, just to continue on that, I mentioned that, it's a conversation that's ongoing throughout the year, but it does go both ways, right? So we do have those two in-person sessions with these customers, but we kind of quickly realized like, well, we could ask them other things too, even outside of these sessions. So we recently rolled out our smart metering program, and as a part of that, we have like an online portal that you can log into to see your usage and pay your bills and things like that. So when we were launching that, we had narrowed down what we wanted to name it to like a few things. And then we were like, why not run this by the customer advisory council just to get, a real customer's opinion about it. And so it was outside of our normal meeting time, but we emailed them and asked them for their input, and they gladly shared with us. And then the next time that we saw them, we were showing them the portal now that it was ready and live. And some of them were saying, this is what I like, I helped name this, like I voted for that. And
Cool.
so it is like a two-way conversation that is ongoing.
A couple of questions just about the different types of employees involved. Is upper management involved? Is it just your comm staff? It sounds like a vast array based on the examples you've given. I know you mentioned Suzanne De Lorenzo. Some people might not know her title. So just kind of what kind of people, other staff involved with this?
Yeah, so we try to change it up all the time because we don't want the customers hearing the same thing over and over. They definitely resonate really well with our director of water quality, Suzanne. So we do like to involve her just because there's always questions about water quality. And similarly, we like there are things that are always going to come up, like rates, like water quality. So we always want to have someone in the room that can speak to those. And then beyond that, especially once we started seeing what a great training ground this is for our spokespeople to learn how to talk about their job, it's been an opportunity for us to involve different people than our normal, you know, um, like we have opening remarks from our president, but what is more valuable than a hello from our president is hearing from really in the field people, people that interact directly with customers, people that do hands-on projects like our smart meters and things like that, letting them share about what they do day to day. So we
Yeah,
really rotate it.
there's a question, I think, about the internal hesitancy or buy-in that was needed. Did you have to really pitch to those departments, hey, here's what it is, let me give you this presentation in order for them to like send their people to get involved, or how did that work?
Yes, actually, that I will say is that we did have like our president and some executives at that first session, and that helped kind of get further buy-in because everyone that comes to these sessions is really amazed. I think before an employee hears how these go with their customers, they naturally are like, I don't want to hear from our customers. So sometimes what we do is we invite employees just to come listen in. And then what they don't know is that we're probably going to tap them to present next time now that they've seen how great it goes. They'll probably be more open to it anyways. But that is really valuable too, to have people just come sit in the back of the room and hear what conversations with customers are actually like. And then that helps tee them up to then be a part of the conversations.
Yeah, it's a good point that goes to this next audience question I'm going to ask, but Rogue is just really big on just validating the fear. It doesn't make us wrong or bad. This the water sector. We are providing a public service and really obviously passionate about that to be in this industry and doing it every day. But it is scary to talk to angry people. And so we just need to build the confidence and skills and habits of better engagement. And then hopefully there's a lot of stories like you guys where, oh, actually, this was way more beneficial than it was scary. But sorry, an audience member does have the question of like she's heard examples where it hasn't went, as nicely as some of the ones you've shared. How did you get the group to really be engaged and not just complain and just list off all their complaints?
Yeah, I think we do try to have like directed conversation, like um, have prompting questions maybe to help direct the conversation. Like it is open, but rather than just being like, let's talk about rates, maybe asking questions to prompt the customers. How do you want to hear about your rates? What
Mm.
confuses you about this part of rates? Which I think helps. And then also kind of being honest about like, this is who we have in the room and that's what they can speak to. Like there will be times where it's like, this is Suzanne. She's a director of water quality. That's a question about rates. Why don't we save that for later? Like I'm not going to try and there's a humanity in the room of just being like, it's like, look at her, like she's not going to speak to rates. So we're going to save that
Yeah.
question for later. And I will say that like having a facilitator, like kind of an MC, is helpful with helping to direct the conversation.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think too talks to the environment that you're setting up is like this isn't a town hall or just like that one meeting where there's a Q&A session at the end. And I think those settings sometimes lend themselves to, yeah, I've got a complaint, let's talk about it. Versus like this is an engaged 4 hours where you're really engaging. You can kind of answer this one however you want, but is there like an estimate of the cost, or maybe you want to talk about like what goes into the cost for this type of program?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I know it's tough because it's kind of different for, especially because this is an agency that we also do other things with,
Yeah.
right? That we work with. But I think the recruitment really is probably the most like cost intensive part, besides like lunch, which is really nothing. And once you can have it in house, then you don't have to rent a facility. And so I would really say just I would consider, when you're budgeting, it's like a time commitment. It's like the hours that go into the phone conversations and the interview process and the vetting. The more time that you put into that, the better the outcome will be. Because if you get a group of people that aren't going to be having thoughtful conversation, then what was the point of renting the space and having the lunch and getting the employees to step away from their work for several hours? So that's where your investment's going to go. Our program is, right now it's 2 meetings a year. But again, it is also maintaining that ongoing conversation, and vetting the list kind of on an ongoing basis. And it is around like 10K. But there are a lot of other things that go into that, because we work with our agency on other things too. So,
Yeah, and I think this is obviously an initiative that could be scaled up and down and
yeah.
probably should be individualized by each place of what is unique, to your community and your utility. And do you already have a bus? Like, are you going to be able to take people somewhere? If you didn't, then that's obviously a cost. So, yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us. And if you're interested in more from Pal, her utility does a lot of other unique things, such as working with influencers on getting information out and helping with the like new app and systems you've talked about. And so Rogue Water actually has her as a guide. She'll be at Catalyst this year. Catalyst is a 3-day experience we put on every year. It'll be in San Diego this year, September 1st through 3rd. Reservations are closed, but we have a room for like 10 more. And so I just thought I would, this is a small group. I felt like I could announce that without getting overwhelmed. So if you want to hear from more people like her and about the behavioral science and better engagement with our customers, welcome you to look into that. With that, thank you so much, Pal, for joining us here today. And thanks everyone else. You have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.